Imagine being part of a high-performing team, poised to achieve something incredible, only for everything to unravel because of one simple issue: trust. Without it, you might as well be running in circles. Team members start holding back, avoiding honest conversations, and hiding their true thoughts. Decisions become slower, communication falters, and before you know it, the project is in jeopardy. But what if you could fix that? What if trust could be restored, and with it, your team's productivity skyrocketed? Stick around as we dive into how trust, or the lack of it, affects everything, and most importantly, how to build it back up so you and your team can thrive, no matter what. Don't miss the solution to this critical issue: absence of trust. Trust is the foundation of any successful team. Without it, a group of talented individuals can become a disjointed collection of people working in isolation. Patrick Lencioni's first dysfunction, the absence of trust, speaks to the heart of why so many teams fail before they even begin. When trust is absent, team members withhold information, avoid asking for help, and are reluctant to be vulnerable with one another. They're not open about their mistakes, weaknesses, or challenges, and this leads to a breakdown in communication. The result? Poor decision-making, missed opportunities, and a sense of frustration that slowly seeps into every interaction. And let me tell you, I've been there. I recall a time when I was working on a project with a team that seemed perfect on paper. We were a group of highly skilled individuals, each excelling in our area of expertise. But there was one glaring problem: no one trusted each other. We all kept our cards close to our chest, never fully sharing our thoughts or ideas. It started innocently enough. No one wanted to seem weak or incompetent, so we put on a facade of confidence. But the longer we worked together, the more it became evident that we weren't really collaborating. Instead of brainstorming openly, we were all focused on protecting our own turf, afraid to admit any uncertainties or mistakes. One day, a critical decision had to be made about the direction of the project. The stakes were high, and we needed a solution fast. But because we hadn't built the trust necessary to have open, honest conversations, no one was willing to speak up. Everyone sat silently, each of us assuming that someone else had the right answer. Meanwhile, the deadline was approaching, and our indecision led to missed opportunities. We failed to make the necessary adjustments in time, and the project ended in a complete failure. In hindsight, it was clear that the lack of trust had caused the breakdown. No one was comfortable being vulnerable enough to share their thoughts, and as a result, we couldn't make a collective decision. This experience opened my eyes to the importance of trust within a team. Trust doesn't just happen overnight. It's something that must be cultivated and nurtured. If trust is absent, it's only a matter of time before communication falters, collaboration falls apart, and productivity drops. So, how do we overcome this dysfunction and build the trust necessary for success? The first step is transparency. Team members need to feel comfortable being honest with each other, and that means being open about strengths, weaknesses, fears, and doubts. Transparency requires a willingness to be vulnerable, admitting when you don't know something, asking for help when needed, and acknowledging when you've made a mistake. But for this to happen, a safe environment must be created, one where people are encouraged to share their true selves without fear of judgment or retribution. One effective way to foster transparency is through team-building exercises. These exercises are not just about having fun or breaking the ice, but about creating opportunities for team members to connect on a deeper level. For example, team-building activities can involve sharing personal stories or experiences that reveal vulnerability. These activities help to humanize team members and break down barriers, making it easier for everyone to open up and communicate honestly. Whether it's a group challenge that requires collaboration or a more personal exercise like sharing your greatest professional fear, these moments of connection build trust and help to break down the walls of defensiveness that so often exist in teams. Another key strategy is creating a culture of open communication. Teams need to have ongoing discussions about expectations, roles, and challenges. This can be done through regular check-ins, where everyone has the chance to voice concerns and offer suggestions. For communication to be effective, it must be two-way, with team members not only sharing their own ideas but also actively listening to each other. When people feel heard and understood, trust begins to develop. But when communication is one-sided, or when some voices dominate while others remain silent, trust erodes. One of the most powerful ways to build trust within a team is through consistency. Team members need to know that they can rely on each other to show up and perform, especially in high-pressure situations. This doesn't just mean delivering on tasks, but also being reliable in terms of communication. When team members can count on each other to follow through on promises, meet deadlines, and offer constructive feedback, trust grows. But when promises are broken or expectations are not met, even once, it can take a long time to rebuild that trust. In addition, as a leader or team member, it's crucial to model vulnerability. If you want others to trust you, you must first demonstrate trust in them. Lead by example, share your own challenges, admit your mistakes, and ask for feedback. When others see that it's okay to be imperfect, they will feel safer in being open themselves. I remember when I was working with a team, I made it a point to admit my own uncertainties, even when it was uncomfortable. I would say things like, "I'm not sure about this approach, but I'd love to hear your thoughts," or "I made a mistake here, and I'm working on fixing it." By doing this, I showed that it was okay to be human, and others began to follow suit. Slowly, the atmosphere in the team shifted. People began sharing their ideas more openly, offering feedback more freely, and, most importantly, trusting each other to get the job done. It's also important to recognize that building trust is a process, not a one-time event. Trust must be continuously nurtured, especially when challenges arise. When a team faces conflict or pressure, that's when the lack of trust can really show itself. It's easy to trust when everything is going smoothly, but when things get tough, trust is truly tested. This is when it becomes critical to rely on the strategies we've put in place: transparency, open communication, vulnerability, and consistency to weather the storm. If the team can lean into trust during difficult times, it will only grow stronger. Ultimately, trust is the glue that holds a team together. Without it, individuals may have the necessary skills, but they won't be able to collaborate effectively or reach their full potential. With trust, however, everything changes. Team members become more willing to share ideas, support each other, and tackle challenges head-on. The result is a more productive, efficient, and successful team. Trust isn't just about liking each other, it's about being real with each other, having each other's backs, and knowing that, no matter what, everyone is working towards the same goal. The absence of trust is the first dysfunction of a team, and it's one that can cause irreparable damage if not addressed. But with the right strategies, trust can be rebuilt, and with it, teams can achieve remarkable things. Fear of conflict. Fear of conflict is the second dysfunction that can severely undermine a team's ability to perform. As strange as it may seem, conflict is not always a bad thing. In fact, it's an essential ingredient for creativity, problem-solving, and growth. When team members are afraid to disagree or challenge each other's ideas, important issues are often left unaddressed. Problems that could be solved early on turn into larger, more complicated issues later. The absence of conflict leads to stagnation, a lack of innovation, and unresolved tension that can slowly erode trust and collaboration. As Patrick Lencioni puts it, avoiding conflict creates a false sense of harmony, but the reality is far more toxic when problems are swept under the rug. I remember being part of a team where avoiding conflict was a sort of unspoken rule. We prided ourselves on getting along, but over time, I noticed how unhealthy this was. The problems started with small disagreements, nothing major, just little things that we would gloss over to avoid making waves. At first, it didn't seem like a big deal. We all wanted to maintain a good atmosphere, so we kept our opinions to ourselves. But as we moved further along in the project, we started facing bigger decisions. And that's when the cracks began to show. There was one instance where we were developing a new product, and the marketing strategy was being discussed. Some team members were pushing for a more aggressive, bold campaign, while others wanted a more cautious, conservative approach. Instead of addressing the disagreement openly, we avoided it. Everyone nodded in agreement, even though not everyone was fully on board. The fear of conflict had kept us from having an honest discussion. We just wanted to avoid the discomfort of disagreeing and made a collective decision to move forward without truly resolving the differing viewpoints. But as the campaign launched, it became clear that the decision wasn't right. The bold strategy, which seemed like the best option on paper, didn't resonate with our target audience. We missed the mark in terms of messaging, and the product launch didn't go as planned. We were left scrambling to adjust in the midst of a failed campaign. Looking back, I realized that avoiding the conflict at the start, the failure to openly debate our ideas, led to a larger problem later. The inability to challenge each other's assumptions meant we missed an opportunity to refine our strategy, resulting in a failed product launch. This experience made me realize that fear of conflict doesn't just delay progress, it can also create bigger, more damaging issues down the line. When we don't address conflicts head-on, we allow tension to build up. Those unspoken disagreements start to fester, leading to frustration and resentment. What could have been a healthy discussion becomes a suppressed issue, and that leads to poor decisions and missed opportunities. So, how do we overcome this dysfunction? How do we create a culture where conflict is not only accepted but encouraged? The key lies in creating an environment where people can disagree without fear of judgment or retaliation. This doesn't mean encouraging chaos or personal attacks, but rather promoting healthy debate and constructive criticism. When team members feel that they can share differing opinions without fear of being shut down or belittled, the team becomes stronger, more creative, and more effective. One of the first steps in overcoming the fear of conflict is to reframe how conflict is viewed. Instead of seeing it as something negative or uncomfortable, we need to start viewing it as a tool for growth. Healthy conflict is a sign of engagement and commitment. It means that team members care enough about the outcome to challenge each other's ideas and push for the best solution. Conflict allows for a diversity of perspectives, which is vital for creative problem solving. When ideas clash, they force us to think critically, to evaluate our assumptions, and to find the best possible way forward. Leaders have an important role to play in this process. If leaders can demonstrate that conflict is a healthy and productive part of teamwork, they set the tone for the entire group. Leaders should encourage open discussions and make it clear that disagreement is not only acceptable but necessary. This involves fostering a safe space where all voices are heard and respected, regardless of their position or seniority. If a leader dismisses conflict or punishes those who speak up, they set the stage for passive agreement, which stifles creativity and ultimately harms the team. In my own experience, I've learned the value of encouraging open debates and welcoming differing opinions. One of the most effective ways to handle conflict is to ensure that the discussion stays focused on the issue at hand, rather than personal attacks or defensiveness. This requires establishing ground rules for healthy communication. For example, in a meeting, everyone should be encouraged to voice their thoughts, but the focus must remain on the problem, not the people involved. When individuals feel that they can express their ideas without fear of being criticized personally, it becomes easier to engage in productive conflict. It also helps to approach conflict with curiosity rather than defensiveness. Instead of feeling threatened by differing opinions, team members should approach conflict with a mindset of inquiry. Rather than assuming that the other person is wrong, it's important to ask questions and seek to understand their point of view. This approach shifts the focus from winning an argument to finding the best solution. It encourages collaboration rather than division. One way to facilitate healthy conflict is to bring in a neutral party, such as a facilitator, to guide the conversation. This can help keep the discussion on track and ensure that everyone has the opportunity to contribute. A skilled facilitator can encourage team members to express their opinions in a respectful manner, which can prevent the discussion from turning into a shouting match or devolving into personal attacks. The facilitator can also help to reframe disagreements in a productive way, allowing the team to move forward and make decisions. Another strategy to overcome the fear of conflict is to establish trust within the team, which is vital for open dialogue. When team members trust each other, they are more likely to engage in healthy conflict. Trust creates an environment where people feel safe to challenge ideas without fear of negative consequences. If the trust is absent, conflict will inevitably be avoided or suppressed. This is where the first dysfunction, absence of trust, comes into play. Without trust, there can be no productive conflict, and without conflict, the team cannot reach its full potential. It's also important to recognize that conflict doesn't always lead to a resolution right away, and that's okay. Sometimes, the best outcomes come from ongoing discussion, where ideas evolve over time. The process of conflict can help clarify different viewpoints, refine ideas, and lead to better solutions in the long run. As long as the conflict remains respectful and solution-oriented, it can be an invaluable part of the team dynamic. I once worked with a team that was facing a difficult decision regarding a major project. There were strong opposing viewpoints, but instead of avoiding the conflict, we decided to embrace it. We scheduled a series of meetings where each side could present their case and challenge each other's ideas. At first, the discussions were tense, but over time, the debates became more constructive. Everyone was able to express their concerns, and we ultimately reached a compromise that combined the best elements of both approaches. The project ended up being much more successful than if we had avoided the conflict in the first place. By addressing the disagreement head-on, we created a stronger, more unified plan. In the end, avoiding conflict is more dangerous than engaging in it. Conflict is not something to be feared but embraced as a necessary part of the creative process. When teams avoid conflict, they miss out on opportunities to improve and innovate. When they engage in healthy conflict, however, they tap into a wealth of ideas, perspectives, and solutions that can lead to greater success. The key is to foster a culture where conflict is viewed as an opportunity for growth, not a threat. Only then can teams reach their full potential and thrive. Lack of commitment. Lack of commitment is one of the most destructive dysfunctions a team can experience. When team members aren't fully on board with the decisions made, they might appear to agree in the moment, but their lack of true commitment leads to disengagement, lackluster efforts, and missed deadlines. It's not that they're deliberately sabotaging the team's success, rather, it's the result of not feeling fully invested in the decisions or goals that have been set. A team with a lack of commitment is like a car that's out of alignment. No matter how much you push on the gas pedal, it just won't run smoothly. In the absence of commitment, there's no urgency, no shared sense of responsibility, and the overall drive needed to complete tasks with excellence disappears. I recall a situation during a product launch where commitment was severely lacking, and it became a major issue for the team. We were tasked with rolling out a new product, and everything seemed to be going well in the initial planning stages. The ideas were flowing, the timelines were set, and everyone seemed to be on the same page. But as the weeks went on, I began to notice a shift. Some team members were no longer participating as fully as they had in the beginning. They weren't attending meetings, their contributions were minimal, and deadlines were being missed with no real explanation. At first, I thought it was just a temporary slump or that the team was distracted with other tasks, but the situation kept getting worse. We hit a point where a critical decision had to be made, and a few key members of the team didn't show up for the meeting. Those who did show up were either indifferent to the decision-making process or too passive to express their opinions. As a result, we ended up moving forward with a decision that wasn't fully thought through, and ultimately, it impacted the product launch. The lack of commitment from some members meant that the project wasn't getting the attention or energy it needed. The product didn't perform well, and the feedback we received was that we hadn't taken enough time to consider the full picture. It felt like a failure, but in reality, the failure started much earlier when commitment faltered. The real challenge with a lack of commitment is that it's not always obvious in the early stages. Team members might continue to attend meetings and participate, but their level of engagement drops off. This can be due to a variety of factors. Perhaps they don't understand the larger vision, they don't feel personally invested in the project, or they simply don't feel their input matters. Whatever the reason, the results are the same: a lack of drive and energy, missed deadlines, and a product or outcome that suffers from a lack of focus. To overcome this dysfunction, it's essential to address commitment from the very beginning. One of the first steps in fostering commitment is setting clear, well-defined goals. When everyone understands the purpose of the project, the objectives, and how their contributions tie into the overall success, it's easier to rally behind the cause. People need to feel like their efforts matter, that they are working toward a common goal, and that their contributions have real value. Without clear goals, it's easy for the team to become disconnected and lose focus, which leads to the disengagement I witnessed during that product launch. Another important aspect of commitment is ensuring that every team member has full buy-in. It's not enough for the leader or a few vocal individuals to be committed, everyone needs to feel personally accountable. This means getting everyone involved in the decision-making process and allowing them to express their concerns, ideas, and feedback. When people feel heard and valued, they are more likely to commit to the course of action. If there are lingering doubts or disagreements, those need to be addressed openly, not swept under the rug. Everyone should leave a meeting knowing exactly what their role is, what the expectations are, and why the decisions that were made are important for the success of the team. I've learned that it's essential to allow space for team members to voice their concerns during the early stages of a project. If there are doubts or reservations, addressing them upfront prevents misunderstandings later on. In one instance, we had a project that required input from various departments, and there were different ideas about how the project should be executed. At first, we tried to streamline the decision-making process, but this led to confusion and lack of commitment. Some people weren't fully on board with the strategy, and they didn't feel comfortable voicing their opinions. As a result, commitment was half-hearted at best, and the project faltered. We turned things around by revisiting the team's goals and giving each member a voice in the process. We spent extra time discussing the reasons behind our approach and ensuring everyone was on the same page. This not only helped clarify the purpose of the project but also ensured that everyone understood how their role contributed to the bigger picture. The difference this made was clear. We had a stronger sense of commitment, and as a result, the project progressed smoothly. People felt accountable to each other, and deadlines were met with a renewed sense of purpose. The key to commitment lies in creating a shared vision. When a team has a clear understanding of what they are working toward and why it matters, they are more likely to stay engaged throughout the process. This means leaders need to communicate the purpose and goals clearly, and they need to do so in a way that resonates with each individual. Commitment isn't just about asking people to show up, it's about making sure they understand the bigger picture and feel personally invested in the outcome. Another way to encourage commitment is to ensure that roles and responsibilities are clearly defined. When team members know exactly what is expected of them and how their efforts will contribute to the success of the project, they are more likely to take ownership of their work. This also helps prevent confusion and miscommunication, which can further erode commitment. In one instance, we had a project where the responsibilities weren't clearly delineated, and as a result, everyone assumed someone else was taking care of the important tasks. This led to missed deadlines and a lack of accountability, which ultimately caused the project to stall. When teams are committed, they have a sense of shared ownership. Each member understands their role, and they know that their success is intertwined with the success of the entire team. This sense of accountability fosters motivation, encourages collaboration, and increases the likelihood that deadlines will be met. Without commitment, however, the opposite happens. Team members disengage, become less productive, and fail to meet expectations. This is why it's so important to build a culture of commitment from the start. One effective way to build commitment is to celebrate milestones and achievements along the way. Recognizing small wins helps reinforce the team's sense of accomplishment and keeps everyone motivated. It's easy for teams to become disheartened if they feel like they're working towards something with no end in sight. Celebrating progress reminds everyone that they're moving in the right direction and that their efforts are contributing to the bigger picture. In my experience, this simple act of recognition goes a long way in keeping the team focused and committed. Lastly, it's important to acknowledge that commitment isn't just about agreeing with the decisions made, it's about taking ownership of the outcomes, whether good or bad. Even when things don't go as planned, a committed team will work together to find solutions, adjust the course, and keep moving forward. In contrast, when commitment is lacking, it's easy to point fingers, shift blame, or disengage from the process altogether. Commitment requires a sense of responsibility, clarity of purpose, and shared ownership. When team members feel fully invested, they will work harder, push through obstacles, and hold themselves accountable for the team's success. By setting clear goals, ensuring full buy-in, and fostering a culture of accountability, teams can overcome the lack of commitment and build a stronger foundation for success. Avoidance of accountability. Avoidance of accountability is a dysfunction that can subtly undermine a team's success without anyone noticing until it's too late. It occurs when team members fail to hold each other accountable for their actions or lack thereof. Without accountability, tasks can slip through the cracks, deadlines can be missed, and the overall progress of the team begins to stall. Over time, this can create an environment where people become complacent, knowing that their lack of follow-through won't be questioned or addressed. As the lack of accountability spreads, it becomes a cancer that slowly rots the team's effectiveness. What starts as small oversight can quickly turn into a major issue that derails the entire team's efforts. It's like running a race where one runner doesn't keep up with the rest, they don't get called out, and eventually, the whole team slows down to accommodate them. The pace of success begins to drop for everyone. I remember a time when I was part of a team working on an important project. The team consisted of smart, capable people, and we had high expectations for what we could accomplish. At first, everything was moving along smoothly. We set clear goals, assigned roles, and created a timeline. However, as the project continued, I started to notice something unsettling. Some team members were consistently missing deadlines, not attending meetings, or failing to follow through on their assigned tasks. But rather than confronting these issues head-on, the rest of the team, myself included, let it slide. We didn't address the missed deadlines or ask tough questions about the lack of follow-through. We were all focused on our own tasks, and we assumed that someone else would take care of it. The result was a downward spiral. The work that was submitted was rushed and incomplete, and we quickly fell behind schedule. The final product lacked the polish and attention to detail it needed, and the team ended up delivering something far less impressive than we were capable of. Ultimately, we missed the key objectives we had set out to achieve, and the project was deemed a failure. Looking back, I realized that the lack of accountability was a major factor in the outcome. We didn't hold each other responsible, and that lack of commitment showed in the final results. Without accountability, we had no way of ensuring that everyone was giving their best effort or contributing to the success of the team. When accountability is avoided, complacency creeps in, and the quality of work starts to deteriorate. Team members become less motivated to meet expectations because they know that no one will call them out if they don't. This can create a toxic culture where mediocrity is tolerated, and excellence becomes the exception rather than the norm. People stop pushing themselves because they know their efforts won't be scrutinized, and they stop holding others to the same high standards. This lack of personal and team responsibility can quickly spiral out of control and affect not just the quality of work, but the morale of the entire team. When accountability is missing, people don't feel personally invested in the outcomes. They start to adopt a "not my problem" attitude, and that's when progress starts to slow. One of the most important steps to overcoming this dysfunction is implementing regular check-ins or reviews to ensure everyone is meeting their responsibilities. Regularly checking in with each team member allows you to gauge progress, identify any obstacles, and hold people accountable for their actions, or lack thereof, before things get out of hand. It's important to foster an environment where everyone knows they will be held accountable for their work, and that there will be consequences if they don't deliver. These check-ins should be structured and specific. It's not enough to just ask if everyone is doing okay. Instead, you should have clear expectations for what each person needs to have done by the next check-in. Be specific about the tasks, the deadlines, and the quality of work expected. This ensures that no one can slip through the cracks or avoid their responsibilities. I've learned that it's important to approach accountability with a sense of shared responsibility. It's not just about pointing out when someone fails to meet expectations, it's about creating a culture where everyone feels responsible for each other's success. When team members know that they are accountable not only to their individual roles but also to the overall success of the team, they are more likely to stay engaged and focused on their tasks. It's essential to build a culture where accountability isn't seen as a punitive measure but as a way to support and encourage each other to perform at their best. Another way to foster accountability is to make sure that everyone is clear on their roles and responsibilities from the very beginning. When roles are ambiguous or undefined, it becomes much harder to hold anyone accountable because no one knows who is responsible for what. People may assume someone else will take care of things, or they may simply not realize that a certain task falls under their responsibility. By clearly defining roles and expectations, you can eliminate any confusion and create a sense of ownership among team members. When everyone knows exactly what they need to do and how their work fits into the larger picture, they are more likely to take responsibility for their actions and deliver results. One of the key challenges in holding people accountable is the fear of confrontation. Many people are reluctant to call out their peers or team members when they fall short because they don't want to create tension or hurt feelings. But without confrontation, issues go unresolved, and the dysfunction continues to grow. I've learned that it's important to address problems as they arise, rather than letting them fester. If someone is consistently missing deadlines or not meeting expectations, it's essential to have an open and honest conversation about it. This doesn't mean being confrontational or accusatory, but it does mean addressing the issue directly and discussing how it can be resolved. I've found that when accountability is handled in a respectful and constructive way, it can actually strengthen relationships and improve performance, rather than causing conflict. Regular check-ins are one of the most effective ways to ensure accountability. In my experience, teams that implement weekly or bi-weekly progress reviews have far better results than those that don't. These check-ins don't need to be long or complicated, but they should provide a structured opportunity for each team member to update the group on their progress, discuss any roadblocks, and ask for support if needed. By making accountability a regular part of the process, you create an environment where it's normal and expected to be held responsible for your work. This not only improves performance but also fosters a sense of camaraderie and mutual respect among team members. When team members know they will be held accountable for their work, they are more likely to stay on track and meet deadlines. Accountability creates a sense of urgency, which is a critical element in driving productivity and preventing procrastination. It forces people to prioritize their tasks, manage their time effectively, and stay focused on the goals at hand. In the absence of accountability, people can easily slip into a pattern of procrastination, where they delay important tasks because they know no one will hold them to a deadline. However, when accountability is in place, procrastination becomes much harder to justify, and the pressure to complete tasks on time becomes a motivating factor. In addition to regular check-ins, another important strategy is to make accountability a shared responsibility. This means encouraging team members to hold each other accountable, rather than relying solely on the team leader or manager to do so. When accountability is shared, it takes the pressure off one individual and creates a culture of mutual support and responsibility. Team members can offer feedback, help each other stay on track, and offer assistance when needed. This collaborative approach not only ensures that everyone is meeting their responsibilities but also builds stronger relationships within the team. Overcoming the avoidance of accountability requires a shift in mindset. It's not just about checking off tasks or meeting deadlines, it's about creating a culture where everyone feels personally responsible for the success of the team. By setting clear expectations, holding regular check-ins, and fostering a sense of shared responsibility, teams can overcome this dysfunction and build a stronger, more productive environment. Accountability isn't just about catching people when they fall short, it's about supporting each other, pushing each other to perform at our best, and ensuring that everyone is on track to achieve the team's goals. Inattention to results. Inattention to results is the final dysfunction in Patrick Lencioni's framework, and it's the one that can ultimately sink a team. This dysfunction occurs when team members prioritize their own personal needs, ambitions, or goals above the collective success of the team. When individuals are more focused on their own recognition, advancement, or comfort rather than the team's shared objectives, progress stalls. It's a dysfunction that arises from a lack of alignment or clarity about the team's goals, or a failure to communicate and reinforce those goals consistently. It can lead to a toxic environment where everyone is working in isolation, and the team's performance suffers as a result. When personal goals take precedence over the team's, everything begins to unravel, and the bigger picture becomes distorted. I've experienced this firsthand in a project I worked on a few years ago. We were part of a cross-functional team tasked with delivering a new product feature that was meant to boost user engagement. We had a strong team with diverse skills and expertise, and everyone was excited about the potential impact of the project. However, as we moved forward, it became apparent that some team members were more interested in their own professional goals than the success of the team. One person, in particular, was focused solely on getting the feature released under their name so they could claim credit for the success. They weren't concerned with collaborating or ensuring the team's overall success. Instead, they pushed for their own version of the feature, even though it wasn't aligned with the team's vision. They ignored feedback, rushed decisions, and didn't consider the long-term impact on the team's objectives. As a result, the feature was launched in a way that didn't meet the collective goals we had set, and it caused confusion among users. The team's morale took a hit, and we lost sight of the bigger picture because one person's desire for individual recognition took precedence. The project ended up underperforming, and the team's progress was derailed because we weren't working together to achieve a common vision. When people put their personal goals above the team's objectives, the result is that progress becomes fragmented. Instead of working toward a unified goal, individuals start working in their own silos. This not only slows down the team's overall progress, but it also leads to frustration, miscommunication, and wasted effort. In the case of my project, the misalignment of personal and team goals created confusion and tension. Team members became disengaged because they could see that the focus was not on the shared vision but on personal recognition. This undermined the sense of unity within the team, and when people stop working together toward a common purpose, the results are inevitable: the project stalls, the momentum is lost, and the team's overall effectiveness diminishes. Inattention to results leads to missed deadlines, incomplete tasks, and subpar quality. It prevents the team from achieving its true potential because no one is fully invested in the shared vision. To overcome this dysfunction, it's essential to focus on aligning personal and team goals from the start. When everyone is on the same page and committed to achieving the same outcomes, it's much easier to stay focused and motivated. Everyone should be aware of how their individual goals fit into the larger picture. For example, if someone wants to advance in their career, they should see how their contributions to the team's success will lead to their personal growth. If they understand that their efforts toward the team's shared results will lead to greater recognition, it can help shift their focus toward the collective goals. This alignment helps to prevent the temptation to prioritize personal agendas over team objectives. When everyone is pulling in the same direction, the results are far more impactful and rewarding. One of the most important ways to align personal and team goals is to clearly define the team's vision and ensure that everyone understands it. This means setting specific, measurable goals that everyone can get behind. It also means ensuring that those goals are communicated effectively and that everyone understands their role in achieving them. When team members know exactly how their work contributes to the larger mission, they are more likely to stay committed to the team's success. It also helps to create a sense of ownership and responsibility. If everyone feels personally invested in the outcomes, they will be more motivated to put their best effort forward and ensure that the team's goals are met. Regular check-ins and progress updates are also important for keeping the team aligned. If the team isn't consistently reviewing its progress and making adjustments where necessary, it's easy for people to lose sight of the bigger picture. Having regular meetings where the team can discuss its goals, track progress, and recalibrate as needed helps to keep everyone on track. These meetings also provide an opportunity for team members to hold each other accountable, ensuring that everyone remains focused on the team's objectives and isn't drifting off into their own pursuits. Accountability is essential for staying on track, and without it, it's easy for personal goals to start taking over. It's also helpful to create an environment where success is measured by the team's collective achievements, rather than individual accomplishments. This helps to shift the focus away from personal recognition and towards the team's overall performance. Team members should be celebrated for their contributions to the group's success, and there should be an emphasis on collaboration and mutual support. When team success becomes the ultimate goal, personal recognition becomes a byproduct of the collective achievement, rather than the driving force behind individual efforts. This creates a culture where the team's results matter more than personal gain, and it helps to keep everyone focused on the bigger picture. In my own experience, I've seen the power of aligning personal and team goals. On a recent project, we were tasked with launching a marketing campaign that was meant to increase customer engagement across multiple channels. At the outset, we made sure that everyone understood the campaign's objectives and how their contributions would impact the overall success of the initiative. We set clear goals and KPIs that everyone could track, and each person was given a specific role to play. As the project progressed, there were moments where individuals could have focused on their own personal achievements, whether it was increasing their own sales targets or claiming credit for certain results. But because we kept the focus on the team's shared vision, everyone remained aligned. The result was a successful campaign that exceeded our expectations and delivered exceptional results for the company. The key to our success was not just the individual efforts, but the fact that everyone was working toward the same outcome. In addition to clear goals and regular check-ins, it's important to foster open communication within the team. When team members feel comfortable sharing their concerns and discussing challenges, it helps prevent personal agendas from taking over. If someone feels that their personal goals aren't being supported or that their contributions aren't being recognized, it can lead to disengagement and a focus on individual pursuits. By creating an open environment where team members can voice their thoughts, you ensure that everyone stays aligned and that no one is tempted to prioritize their personal success over the team's goals. One way to reinforce the focus on team results is to constantly remind the team of the bigger picture. This can be done by regularly referencing the team's mission, vision, and long-term objectives. When team members are reminded of the larger impact their work is having, it keeps them focused on the results that matter most. Whether it's in a team meeting, a status update, or an email, reinforcing the team's collective vision helps to maintain a sense of shared purpose and prevents personal goals from overshadowing the team's success. It's also important to celebrate the team's victories together. When the team achieves a goal or milestone, it's a chance to reflect on the collective effort and acknowledge everyone's contributions. Celebrating successes helps reinforce the idea that working together toward a common goal is the most rewarding part of the process. It also strengthens the team's bond and builds a sense of camaraderie, making it less likely that individuals will lose sight of the larger mission. When the focus is on the team's collective achievement, everyone feels a sense of pride and accomplishment, rather than being focused on individual accolades. In conclusion, inattention to results is a dysfunction that can derail any team. When personal goals take precedence over team objectives, the results are often lackluster, and the team's progress is compromised. To overcome this dysfunction, it's essential to align personal and team goals, Keep the team's vision front and center, and foster a culture of accountability and open communication. By doing so, teams can stay focused on what matters most, the collective success of the team, and achieve exceptional results. The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team isn't just a book, it's a guide to understanding what can hold back even the most promising teams. By identifying and addressing these dysfunctions, you can foster a team environment built on trust, commitment, and accountability. If you've ever experienced any of these dysfunctions in your own teams, or if you want to learn how to avoid them, consider picking up this book. And if you found this summary helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts on how you've overcome these challenges in your own teams.